From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, our weekly political talk show. We are talking this week about the president landing in Chicago, doing a fundraiser for Governor Quinn, as well as an economic speech at Northwestern.
Hello, Northwestern.
Rikeesha, why is the president really here this week?
Well, look, this is his hometown. This is a blue state, so it makes sense for him to be here. And there are lots of people that are making hay over the fact that he's here, including Republicans that are saying that this is a sign of desperation. But the truth is, if he hadn't come, they'd be saying something completely different, something along the lines of he's given up on the state or he's given up on Quinn. Look, he's here to rally the base. He's going to do a good job of doing that. There are people that are excited to see him. He's here to talk about things that are going to expand opportunity in the state, expand opportunity in the city, and he's rightly aligned with Quinn on this. And it's a stark contrast to what we're seeing from Bruce Rauner and some of his philosophies when it comes to limiting opportunity for families in Illinois.
Can you answer the same question in your own
I would jump
view?
in and say, yes, it is blue state. In 2010, we saw President Obama come in and campaign for Alexi Janulius. Absolutely, we were nervous and worried about it because it is his home state, it's a blue state.
And you were working for Mark Kirk at the time, right?
Correct, for Senator Kirk's campaign, but we didn't see the bump that Alexi needed. So I think it probably will help the governor. I just don't know that it hurts Browner.
How does it help Governor Quinn to have Obama
Well,
visiting
momentum's
Illinois?
on his side. I think Rauner's finding out that no matter how many TV ads you buy, you can't buy a personality. And things are swinging in Quinn's direction sort of just at the right time. And Obama, for all the challenges he's facing, I think is a deeply popular person in Chicago, at least, or in Illinois, at least among the people who are going to get out and vote for Quinn.
But not popular elsewhere. Aren't there some states where they're downright asking him not to get involved if it's a close call? Do you think that it's going to really help in Chicago?
In Chicago,
Yes.
I think it's going to help. I think there's a core here of people that are excited to see him, and it's about rallying that base. It might be a different conversation downstate. You know, the demographics of the state have changed, and the popularity of things like the Affordable Care Act changes depending on what part of the state that you're from. But the job is here to rally the base here. I think it's going to be effective.
But you seem like you had more to say.
Well, I was going to say that there are people who even divorce the Affordable Care Act from Obama. I mean, no question downstate he's not as popular, but he's still the president. We're at war. And I do think that he's not as divisive as he might have even been a year ago. You don't see that rabid anti-Obama. I mean, you see it among Republicans, of course, who, they eat it every morning with breakfast. But I do think among the people who might vote for Quinn that Obama wouldn't be here if it wasn't helpful.
But let's not forget what happens in a president's 6th year of an 8-year term. When President George W. Bush was president in 2006, Republicans lost the House. We had major losses. We also had the whole Mark Foley scandal, but historically, that 6th year is a bad year for the party in the White House. Can't forget that.
So that plays in significantly this time?
Thank God Jim Oberweis is running.
Well, there's that.
Okay, so he gives an economic speech at Northwestern.
That's the spirit that made the American economy work.
Is this a trumped-up campaign speech for maybe even Rahm Emanuel?
I don't know that you can say specifically it's a campaign speech, but the truth is both of these guys have a similar vision when it comes to expanding opportunity. And there is a lot to say about the improving economy. We can talk about how job growth has been 54 consecutive straight months nationally. Illinois has had the best couple of months that they've had in 6 years, but at the same time, families are still feeling a little bit of a crunch and some anxiousness when it comes to wages and income. So advocating for policies like raising the minimum wage or advocating for those types of policies are something that are going to help people bridge that gap and maybe feel a little bit less anxious about the state of the economy. So I think it's an important message to get out.
You talk about the unemployment going down and everything else. Is that a case of people are just getting fed up and tired and feeling like it's a lost cause, or is the number actually coming down? I mean, that's a debate that goes back and forth.
We're in a bad way, Illinois. There's no question. I mean, Quinn is trying to run on the things that are going well, but we're in a terrible financial situation, and minimum wage is part of the attempt to get them to kind of jumpstart the middle class a little bit, because this gap between rich and poor in the United States is a true problem. So, I mean, yes, it's a popular political thing, but it's also essential that someone does it.
I just don't know how to explain why so many businesses are going to our neighbor states, whether it's Wisconsin. Lake County has lost a number of businesses just over the border into Kenosha or Pleasant Prairie, where folks go into Indiana or Iowa, and it's a continual thing that I think we need to somehow put an end to. I mean, we've got to bookend that.
How embarrassing would this be for Obama if he loses Illinois?
Well, that's not something I'm prepared to think about. You know, I remember hearing lots of conversations about this, you know, months ago when this campaign started and when Rauner was seemingly so far ahead in the polls. But, you know, in the last few weeks, you know, I'm not hearing those conversations anymore. I think people know that this is a dead heat, so I don't hear these conversations about people's fear that all of a sudden this is going to turn into a red state.
Rauner is such a deeply unpleasant person that should he win, I wouldn't care what Obama felt. I would be thinking about what we would feel having to look at him and talk to him and listen to him for the years and years.
Okay, we know where you come from on Rauner.
Jeez.
But I have a feeling you have a very different take on this.
Well, I think that there's a craving for change. I think this election is going to be absolutely in the city with the president being here is going to help in Chicago. But I think the collars in the suburban area is where this race is going to come down to. And I think a lot of those folks are craving for change. They need something. They need some hope.
Hope and change. Okay, well, let's shift to Rahm Emanuel. So he did a couple of things this week. He announced that he was going to give a free ride to students who get 3.0 grade averages in high school.
You hold up your side, get a 3.0, graduate. Our side of the bargain is community college will be free.
He also announced a new selective enrollment high school on the southwest side. Neil, why is he doing this right now?
Well, he's doing it because his polls are in the toilet and he's trying to buff his image, although it's a perfect Rahm Emanuel sort of thing. The number that popped out of the story for me was $2 million, which at $5,000 a pop is 400 kids. The problem with the Chicago Public Schools isn't kids who are getting 3.0s. Okay, they're going to be fine whether Rahm pays their tuition or not. The problem is the 200,000 kids who drop out, and this does nothing for them. And so, again, it looks really nice, but there's nothing there. And it doesn't really address what the problem is. It's the sort of thing that Rahm's been giving us. And he's been very quiet lately to sort of come up with this sort of little puff of symbolism is disappointing, at least from, I mean, it's good for the 400 kids who get it. The other 399,600, they still got problems.
So is this something that Rahm could have come up with at the last minute? Like
I don't think so. I think this is something that you have to do some planning. You don't just do this overnight. And clearly this is something that he's talked about since when he first ran. The education issue, very important to him. I think that they've probably done some planning on it.
What about the selective enrollment high school? Is this going to help his image? Is that what he's trying to do?
Well, I mean, the question for me is not whether or not it's going to help his image or whether or not this is a symbolic gesture that is designed to get him a little further when it comes to the election. The question to me is, you know, for those students that are able to take, you know, this opportunity, do they care why he's doing it? And we like to talk about the political back and forth and the messaging. You know, the message probably sounds right because the actual goal sounds right. So we'll just have to see if this fleshes out into something real.
As far as the image issue he's having, is it going to help right now?
You know, by the time he wins in February, I assume that he will, because it's a done thing, he will have, using his political skill, have gotten enough people to think that we need to vote for him again. He's such a master at this, you assume that nothing's accidental.
Okay, let's close off with quotes of the week. Why don't we start with you, Eric?
The quote I saw that I thought was pretty funny was, "There are simply not enough hours in the day to raise money, campaign, run their offices, and sleep." This was attributed to a Democratic strategist talking about why candidates entrust their staff to handle day operations and why there's been a proliferation of plagiarism. Which I thought was kind of interesting.
Go ahead, Rikeesha.
Mine is actually from a story that broke in the Sun-Times dealing with one of GTCR's businesses, their involvement with a company that got caught up in a corruption bribery scandal. It was actually your own Dan that said, "It seems that every day brings another story, placing GTCR's reputation in deeper doubt."
So my quote is, "Some people pay $60,000 for a car. I think that's insane." Doug Sohn, who is the owner of Hot Doug's, the vastly popular Avondale encased meat emporium, which is closing Friday, and which people were waiting in line for 12 hours for. And he was just basically saying that one man's ceiling is another man's floor, and we all value different things.
And I am going to go back to the Rahm Emanuel story, the city colleges. Karen Lewis had a very different view on why he was doing this, and she called it desperation. He's trying to appeal to people he doesn't appeal to. With that, thank you very much to our panel, and thank you for joining us. We will see you again next week.